It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, it is a Bok Friday, but right now we are talking tech. Yesterday, Facebook made history in settling an historic $5 billion US. $5 billion. Wow, amounting to some 70 billion rand in South Africa with the US Federal Trade Commission. That speaks volumes about how much money they are actually making. Here to unpack this in detail is our resident tech expert, who I think is as exasperated by this, Brian Smith. This is mind-blowing. So how much is the revenue of Facebook if they can, I mean, would this have hurt them? Was this a punitive fine and did it do its job?
So you ready for some numbers?
Yes.
So it's estimated that obviously depending on their revenue per week, Facebook makes about $5 billion US about every 29 days. So to answer your question straight up, this is essentially a slap on the wrist in tech terms. However, it does represent one of the largest fines ever issued to a single publicly listed company, at least in US history before. So it is remarkable in that sense.
I mean, could they... Okay, let's go back to the beginning first. But why were they fined, first of all?
So, if you recall, Facebook hasn't had a good run as of late, especially in the past, especially in the last couple of months. We've had the Cambridge Analytica scandal and far more varied, nuanced scandals involving both the retention and keeping and use of its users' personal data, in addition to its third-party services and partners. Now, if you consider this has sort of been boiling to a head, and Facebook's been under review for these practices for some time. And essentially now Facebook has been found inadvertently guilty of not maintaining a 2012 agreement that it would take all necessary measures to safeguard its users' data. So essentially now that agreement has come back to bite. Facebook now is essentially having to redirect its entire product offering to essentially highlight the safety and personal security of users, but that remains sort of up in the air, and settling this fine remains sort of a transparent step towards that process.
How did they determine this fine? Because they clearly could have gotten more, but would that have been so far off the industry norm or the mark of what had been happening? Like you say, this is the biggest ever. Could they have gone higher?
They could have potentially. However, there is necessarily no precedent for sort of valuing this kind of incident and sort of putting a price per user affected, so to speak. One of the really interesting repercussions is that going forward, Facebook will now have to disclose every time a privacy breach affects more than 500 users, which might not sound like a lot. It's a tiny percentage compared to Facebook's overall user base, but that'll be a great transparent step.
So the person out there with like 499 followers going, come on, Brian, 500 is a massive amount. It's a ton of people, man. It's a ton. So where does this mean? Because a lot of what these advancements speak to a PR exercise for me in terms of what Mark and Facebook have done, but are they shifting gears in the right way? I've said shifting gears about 10 times this morning. It's more the sporting reference, but are we seeing the right kind of mindset shift? Are we going to see a safer playground for us, the end user, do you think?
I think in the next 12 months, we will see a Facebook that is radically different in its approach. And one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg himself has spoken very publicly about is just transitioning to a platform that's what he's calling as privacy-focused. So we're likely going to see a huge amount of changes in the way Facebook stores and retains your data and also uses it to show you ads.
MySpace.
Hopefully not. One of the major steps to do that will sort of be introducing Facebook's own cryptocurrency called Libra. And we'll probably see Facebook take on a more transactional method, which I mean, they'll be probably more involved in advertising items for sale and facilitating those purchases
rather than forcing an ad directly onto you, and then you can pay all future fines in crypto. That is crazy, but you know, however you feel, it's still one of the biggest fines, if not the biggest fine in that space. So, sorry, Mark, sorry that you had to deal with that, but we've got to right the ship, man. So that was a slap on the wrist for Mark Zuckerberg. Thanks again to Brian. Make sure to keep up with the latest tech news on bandwidthblog.com. You can also ask him a range of questions. I doubt there's a question that he cannot answer.